Hello everyone, so this year we have a new release coming soon from Carcass, and this is a band that every time they put out a record, a lot of people will talk about how they have changed their style for better or worse, most likely for worse usually, and the question is always whether or not they have retained what they had set out to do initially as a band throughout their career, and whether or not they have sold out. I don't know if they have sold out in a sense. They have a multitude of times kind of turned their back on the aesthetic that they had originally come up with and alienated a lot of fans. But I don't think that any of this was due to them wanting to chase any kind of recognition or success. I think that every iteration of this band, for the most part, has been coming from an organic place. I think that what we've heard throughout their career is the result of people growing up. And, although we may identify more with what they had done on Reek of Putrefaction, that's the kind of record that can only really happen when you're young and hungry. You're not going to have that same kind of focus when you're an older guy. It just doesn't happen. But I wanted to look at their career, their records, and talk about the point in which I think they really did come close to the sellout term as we know it. Starting with Reek of Putrefaction, if anyone is thinking that the band is going to try to recapture this, it not only will it never happen, but it's impossible. That record is the production, and the production of that record has been decried by the band as being ruined. I don't think that what we know and love for that record is something that it happened on purpose, and that's a shame, because when I immerse myself in that record, like I said, the production is what encapsulates me. The songwriting, it's fine. The riffs, when you could hear them, are pretty cool, but for the most part, it's the aesthetic. It is the pure aesthetic that really sells that record. I guess if you wanted to, you can claim that there's a bit of sellout happening in Symphonies of Sickness. It's the same essentially the same kind of style you hear on Reek of Putrefaction, except there's a few more kind of rock and roll parts coming in, a few more like cheese dick solos kind of pop in, and whereas the first record didn't really have much tongue-in-cheek aspects to it at all, that gallows humor is starting to come out in Symphonies of Sickness. That being said, I think this is the first record that they have great songs on. I think Exhume to Consume is a great song. Reek of Putrefaction is a great song. For the most part, those are the ones. Rupture and Purulence, cool song. But as like a monolithic statement, it's not what Reek of Putrefaction was, even if that was a statement made by accident. Necroticism, I loved this record growing up. This is them going from grindcore to death metal. Once again, this felt like an organic transition to me. This didn't feel like selling out to me. A lot of people now are bringing up some of the riff tropes as being a little bit kind of Cro-Magnon, with how some of it is a little bit percussive and chuggy. But for the most part, I think that some of their best riffs happen on this album. Some of their most clever arrangements happen on this album. I think that this is kind of where they felt at their most solid in terms of coming up with a singular idea and having all the aspects of it, from the production to the execution, lock in step in a way where you're presented with what the band most likely wanted to showcase themselves at the time. It's not most people don't think that this is their favorite record by the band. If I'm going to put on a Carcass record, most likely it's going to be this one. This is the one I spent the most time with as a kid. And like I said, I think it has some of their best riffs. It's not what Reek of Putrefaction was, and it doesn't try to be. It's a very focused death metal kind of record. You don't have grindcore song lengths. You don't have those short bursts at all. This is a much more focused and calculated type of record. For Heartwork, if you wanted to start sharpening the sellout pitchforks, this might be the time. I still think in terms of a melodic death metal record, it's a very strong release. Once again, this is a record that is dramatically aided by its production. The guitars sound awesome. The songs, for the most part, are very hook laden. It's whereas if you come back from where they were with their first records, for the most part they weren't a hook oriented band. This one has a lot of like saccharine type of morose guitar work to it. The guitar harmonies come together very well. There's a lot more elements of classic heavy metal happening here. But once again, it's very, very far removed from what they were, and the song arrangements got a lot more streamlined here. You're not going to hear anything like Impropagation on this one. This is a lot more about the hook, a lot more about the very strong chorus interplay happening here. I still don't think it's a sellout record. I think this is just the maturation of how people develop. I think that they went into this record wanting to kind of excise the fat from how they approach songwriting. There's a lot of bloated stuff happening in Necroticism, and that doesn't happen for Heartwork. Now, moving on to Swan Song, everyone hated this record when it came out. A lot of people would say that this is the sellout record. I'm going to disagree here because I don't think any band sounded like this at the time, and I don't think sounding like this would have been a wise career move. This is not the sound that would have been on the radio. You wouldn't have heard what Swan Song is essentially is a Megadeth record, a modern, like a late '90s Megadeth record, but with Jeff Walker vocals and slightly better rhythm guitar work. If this was viewed as a Megadeth record, it might be more revered than it is as a Carcass record. I could understand why a lot of people would hate this album. It's pretty much, it's got like the Thin Lizzy type of guitar interplay. It's a lot more about the songs are very, very much simplified, where it's verse chorus type of stuff, and it's full of guitar leads. The production is a little weaker than Heartwork. There's no stacking of rhythm tracks here. Apparently Bill Steer didn't want to do that anymore. After being in the studio as many times as I have, I can tell you that shit sucks to do. But you get that wall of sound by stacking your guitar tracks, but you can hear that naked guitar on this one, and it really does sound like it's missing something. The vocal or the lyrics on this one are really, really stupid. That's one of the weakest points about Swan Song. It went from pretty intelligent gallows humor to really embarrassing poetic interplay. It's definitely a tough sit through if you're actually paging through the lyrics. That being said, I don't hate the record. It was a right place at the right time record for me. I was young, and it's a catchy, like Megadeth-y type of metal record. It's fine. It's passable. It's not your sellout record because it didn't take any kind of as much as it sounds like a modern Megadeth record. I don't think that they looked at that style as to be what would catapult them to the next level in terms of earning them a wider fan base. There was plenty of other directions they could have taken if they wanted to sell out at this point. Swan Song is not one of them. And I think that even if they weren't being viewed through the lens of their previous catalog with this record, I think it still would have gotten pretty poor reviews, just based on the odd disconnect between the vocal stylings and the guitar interplay. I still don't view it as their sellout record, though. What I do view as their sellout record is the comeback album, Surgical Steel. Now, while everyone thinks that this is a great record, for the most part in mainstream metal, it left me wanting a lot more, and I didn't find it as being very genuine. With every iteration of Carcass previous to this, I felt that it was genuine. This time, it felt like it was kind of, we need to assemble the basic idea of what Carcass was at their heyday when most people were into it, which is like the Heartwork era when they had, you know, videos on Beavis and Butthead, and presenting it again, even though Bill Steer had said in interviews that, you know, he wasn't feeling metal anymore, he thought it was kind of kids music, coming back after so many years away and then putting out this record after touring in like 2008. They came back together, and then in 2013 I think they put out the new record. This record to me is their sellout record, and it's also pretty uninspired. If you come back after so many years, I want to hear that inspiration, and it's the first record where the riffs didn't really grab me, the songs didn't really grab me. I could tell that they were trying to capture that late Carcass vibe, but it wasn't coming together for me at all. And the reason I feel like it was pieced together is I could pinpoint the riffs that they were copying from their back catalog. The title track, the 3L16 Surgical Steel or whatever, that has a riff that they copped from the third track on Necroticism, but with a slightly different melody attached. The last song has a riff that they copped from the B-side, Edge of Darkness, from the Wake Up and Smell the Carcass compilation. So you would think that after so many years, so much time to dwell on things, that they would give you fresh ideas while still trying to emulate what they stood for, but it didn't come together here. You hear the same kind of like gallopy rhythms that you heard in the song Carnal Forge on Heartwork right away at the start of this record, and the record opens with a redo of a demo track, 1984, which is fine because the old demo sounded like pure ass, and giving it this kind of orchestral vibe was really cool, and it was a cool way to reintroduce the band to the modern era. That being said, I could tell that this was a band that put out a record so that they can continue to tour, and I'm sure that the 2008 tour was very lucrative for them, and they needed to keep the train rolling somehow. Now they have a new record coming out, 2021. It's been, 8 years? And the songs that they have released, I'm not counting the EP that came in between, but the songs that they've released for the new one, I feel the same kind of level of inspiration, where it's, you know, Bill Steer is an amazing guitar player. I do like his sense of melody. I like his approach, but I do not feel that these riffs are nearly at the creative level that they were during like the Necroticism Heartwork level. I really think that this record, as much as I want it to capture what the band should represent in any of the previous iterations, or leading its way into a more progressive future, I don't think it's going to give me a very, very solid artistic statement. And for a band that very successfully reinvented itself, every record that they made, you know, whether or not you liked what Swan Song was, it was still a band that felt organically confident in what they did. The first record that didn't feel like they did that successfully was Surgical Steel, and Surgical Steel to me is not like everybody was like, oh, this is the combination of Necroticism and Heartwork. It's not at all. What it is Swan Song with better production and blast beats. That's all that it is. And a lot of people were fooled by the faster tempos into thinking that it's an aggressive metal record, but it's really not. And the tongue-in-cheek nature of it is through the roof, to the point where the band is so self-aware that it really does detract from the statement and the image that they have. The new song that I heard from the upcoming record, it really feels like a continuation of what Surgical Steel was, which I think was kind of bankrupt as it is. So if I were to pinpoint the sellout time, it would be Surgical Steel, and I think they're still coasting on that. So I'll keep an open mind. I'm very confident that it's not going to be what the new At the Gates record is. I think there's going to be more riffs and more actual songs here. But I don't think that we're going to be getting a career-defining record, a career-encompassing record, or a record that shows that the band has any new tricks up their sleeve. That being said, I will always have a soft spot for Carcass. They've never done anything where I feel like it's a grievous offense. The Carcass's worst material is still far better than any modern metal shit that's happening now, but I do expect better, and I just would really love to hear that they're inspired by what they're doing instead of looking for a paycheck. But we'll see what happens when the record comes out. So thank you for your time.